Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Metzia daf Sadi Gimel. We are going to begin on Sadi Gimel Amud Aleph by the new Mishnah. Says the Masnisin on the top. Kaitzitz Adam Alidi Atzmo. So this we already saw at great length. This almost his entire Mishnah in yesterday's daf. That a person who normally would be able to work the field to be able to therefore eat some of the fruits while they're working could make a stipulation to say, I'm not going to eat any of these things, and therefore I'm going to arrange payment instead of mizonos. So you could do that for yourself, as well as for your children who are older, who are working the field, or your servants who are older, or if your wife is working the field, because they have das, and therefore they could be moichel, even though they have the technical right as workers to be able to eat these fruits. However, they have the ability to be moichel. If, let's say, you have children, your servants who are children, or an animal that's working the field, you cannot say that they should not eat from it. And the reason is, even though maybe you have some rights to them, and the whole question is, do you have an obligation to feed them anyway? Because they don't have the ability to be moichel, and therefore for that reason they have to be able to eat. You can't make such a stipulation. And then the Mishnah says, a person who hires workers, and let's say those people think, again, they're going to be able to eat from those fruits, but it turns out it's lasos menet Rabbi shalai. It's in order for them to be able to work with net Rabbi. So on the fourth year, like Meister Sheni, you have to bring that produce to Yerushalayim. It cannot be eaten in Chutz La'aretz. So these people, on some level, maybe it was a mekachtos, they didn't know, and therefore they're still not allowed to eat it. That's if they knew about it, so therefore they got themselves into the situation knowing that that was the deal. However, let's say they knew that they didn't know it was net Rabbi. They thought it was just regular food. They thought they were going to eat it. They were being saimich on being able to eat it. And all of a sudden it turns out it's net Rabbi. So you need to redeem those fruits, or some of them at least, so they'll be able to eat those fruits, because otherwise, it looks like a mechatos. Nisparsu igulav, let's say the dates, they came apart, even though they were already clustered together, and therefore it's possible that it's not nigmar malachtoi, in the appearance of it not being nigmar malachtoi. The truth is it was, because it was already complete, but then fell apart. Or niftachu chaviyaisav, or you have barrels which are opened up. So harielu, again, lo yoichu, you're not allowed to eat them because it was gemar malacha, and therefore because of that it's chayv and meiser, so they can't eat it. However, again, if let's say they didn't know because it looks like it wasn't completed, then you have to take off meiser and allow them to eat. And then the Mishnah says, Shermi Paris Oichin Mihilchas Medina of Eloi Minatayr. So we finally have a line which is different, that we haven't seen before, that not only workers that work the land, but even watchmen, people who are guarding your produce, also have a right to be able to eat your fruits. However, it's only Hilchas Medina, like a tradition or a custom, as Rashi says, Kvar Nahagu Kain. This is the tradition, the custom of Umin HaTorah. There's no Chiyuv in HaTorah for you to go and do this, to say that they must eat. So now we're going to understand what is this case of Shomer Paris. Shomer Paris, Omarav, Lo Shanu El Shomer Gana Sapardesim. When we're talking about people who are watching things, that which we said that it's not Minatayra is only when we're referring to gardens and orchards. Why? So the Havili Mechuber, says Rashi, because these fruits are attached B'shash in Gemar Malacha at a time, and it's not Gemar Malacha. Hilchach, says Rashi, Minatayra L'achol Ba'achal Hilchas Medina. So a person is not there's no din deraisa, but it's a din derabbanan. Back in the Gemara, of Shemer Gitois Va'aremois. However, you're dealing with detached produce, Archim Minatayra. So their taka, it's already Minatayra that they're allowed to eat. And of course, it's detached, but it's not Gemar Melacha. We see that according to the Shita, that the one who is watching, it's like you're working, and therefore the same halachos apply to the Shomer Paris. And therefore, when it comes to something which is tolush, detached produce, so then oichem in a Torah. However, when it comes to attached produce, that's what it's referring to in our Mishnah when it says it's only mehilchas medina. And the reason is because Rabbi's of the Shita that a worker, a watchman is like a worker. No, our Mishnah that matters this guy only with a Rabbanan, it's referring to detached produce. Of a Shemer Gadus Pardesim, if it's detached, they can't even eat him in a Rabbanan. No, there's no custom at all. Because he holds that Mashamar Lav Kaisamaysadami, that a guard is not the same thing as working the field. And therefore, even though he's doing some task, but a watchman is not the same thing as actually physically working the field. And therefore, for that reason, when it comes to produce, which is still attached to the ground, so that they're not allowed to eat. So the whole heter is dafka if it's something which is like Shomer Ginus Varemois, which Gitos Varemois, which is detached produce. However, things which are attached, not at all. Okay, so Meisiv Rav Acha, so again, that's the sheet of Shmuel. So according to Shmuel, a Shomer should never technically be allowed to eat, but Mehilchas Medina we allow, if he's a Shomer, that which is Tolush, he could eat, but not which is Mechuber. Okay. Meisiv Rav Acha bar Rav Huna. Hamashamer Esaparam. You have a person who is watching a cow. Matame begadim. So we say that there's a din that it can be matama his clothes. Okay. So what is this referring to? It's not just stam a cow. Rashi says it's paraduma. Says Rashi, Mishchitasa v'ad kinus efra. From the moment that of the shchita of the paraduma until the gathering of its ashes, it's begadim, as it quotes the Mishnah in Par Rashi does. Kol oiskim b'parim and chil that saif metame begadim. Every single person that's involved is their clothes become tame. Anyone who's involved in the process of the paraduma. Now, how about a shomer, a guard? He's not really the same thing as a worker, right? So maybe he is. Now, so it's taka kasha and Shmuel. So Maramba, Ba'ula, according to Shmuel, it's not a kasha. Because the truth is, in general, we will say that a guard is not like doing the work. So then why is this guy tummy his clothes? Because it's only Gezerah Shemi Yozes Ba'Ever. We're concerned that maybe he moved its limbs. What does that refer to? Says Rashi, Rabbanan hu de gazer al tumah v'la midaraisa. This is just a din the Rabbanan, not the Raisa. Again, maybe he was involved in some process, and therefore, because he's watching it, maybe he moved it, he did something to it, and therefore, for that reason, that's the reason why he'll say his clothes are tamim b'Rabbanan. Meisiv Rav Kahana, Meshamer arba v'chamish miksha'os. Let's say you have a person that's watching 4 or 5 squash in different fields. You shouldn't fill up your stomach in one of them. You should eat a little of this field, a little from this field. You shouldn't eat from all. Obviously, the fact that he's saying he's allowed to eat it, why is he allowed to eat it? It must be because he's considered like a worker. So Amrav Shima Barashi, we're talking about Ba'akurin Shanu. We're referring to a situation where the plants were already uprooted. Says Rashi, Akurin Mishar Sehem, Im Kishuin Shemehen. They're removed. The Sharmi Toloshem Oichli Mehilchas Medina Kimas Nisan. According to Shmuel, he says, no, that there is an allowance for Shomer if it's already Tolosh. Not if it's Mechomer. If it's Tolosh, we're lenient. And that's what we're talking about. So Akurin, if it's already detached and ripped out of the ground, these plants were uprooted, so you shouldn't be able to eat it for a different problem. Okay, fine, it's tolush, but it's gemar malacha for meiser. You shouldn't be able to for that reason. The answer is, well, it's not completely, because shlonito picos shebehen. The blossom on the top didn't fall off yet. And as we said previously on Pei Chesamad Beis, that when it comes to Kishuin, the Gemar Malacha is Mishi Paksu, from the time that the blossom on the top did not falls off. So Amar Rav Ashi Kavasta de Shmuel Staber. It's actually logical like Shmuel, that he only is monitoring from Hilchas Medina something which is detached. Ditnan ve'elu. It says ve'elu. Why does it say ve'elu in these? Oichem and a Torah. Ha'oisem b'mechober l'karka, something which is attached to the ground. B'shas kamar malacha, and it's kamar malacha. U'b'tolosh chulu. U'mechlal de'ika deloy ka'achom and a Torah. The fact that it mentions these are the ones that you can eat from the Torah. There's other cases that are not from the Torah. El mehilchas Medina. That there's some cases that you could still eat, but it's not because it's from the Torah, but it's rather it's because of custom. So I'm a safe of el sheino eichlin, and then it says these you do not eat. My inu eichlin, ilay sheino eichlin in the Torah el mehilchas Medina. So I had a ratio. That's the same thing as the ratio. El lav sheino eichlin. What does it mean? Some things you cannot eat. It means lo min Torah v'lo mehilchas Medina. There are certain things you can't even eat. There's no custom for. Umaynihu, and what's on that list in the Seifa? Oisim mechubel karka b'shash in gemar malacha. The kosher shemaginus pardesois. If a person is working with something which is still attached to the ground, that's not gemar malacha. Certainly, if we're dealing with shemaginus or pardesois, like Shmuel, then a person is not allowed to eat them. Okay, question 7. Shemer peres oichem mehilchas Medina b'loy min Torah. Madua ein oichlin min Torah. So why can you not eat from the Torah? So according to Rav, when it says it's only the Rabbanon, so he makes a distinction. And he says Shaimer Ginois Pardesim. The Habli Mechuber Shein Gemar Malacha. It's because it's attached to the ground. That's why you can't eat it min Torah. According to Shmuel, he says that you can't eat at all. But when it comes to says Rashi, it says question 7 rather. Shmuel Mishamer Lav Koisamaisi Umari Mishamer Ginos Ginois Gitois Varimois. So he says actually it's referring to things which are detached to the ground without Gemar Malacha, because he holds that a Shemer is not Koisamaisa. Okay, let's also look, since we're at it, let's see what question TB20 has to say. And let's see how I wrote this answer. Shemer Ginos Pardesin Oy Shemer Gitois Varimois Haim Oichlin. Okay. Great question. So it's similar to what we said, but this is what I wrote. Machlokas zetolim hashemer ka'ise malacha avoid got me. Oh loy is a worker, is a guard like a worker. Oz yachol rak davar mechuber hu mehilchos Medina. Aval bedavar tolush. This doesn't sound right at all. Lom de Raisa, Lom de Hilchas Medina. Should say it the other way around. Oh, Lachadman de Aimer, Shoimre Ginos de Raisa, Vigitois Rak Mehilchos Medina. Okay, so basically, let's make sure we get this. It's really pumfakert. This is really written poorly. But again, if it's a davar, which is mechuber, let's say it like this way, a davar which is talush, so everyone holds you could eat it if it's not gemar malacha. So machlokas Rambam Shmuel if it's min Torah or it's just a minig. Something which is mechuber, so that is where there's the question: is that allowed in Medina or not allowed at all? Okay, and I don't think that's what I wrote. Okay, and I don't know if they gave me any credit for that question. They probably shouldn't have. Okay. Let's now move on to the next Mishnah, which sounds a lot like Perek HaMafkid. Says the Masnisa, Arba Shemer main. There's actually 4 guardsmen: a Shemer Chinam, a Shemer who watches something without pay; a Shoyel, someone who borrows an object; Noisei Sachar, someone who rents an object; Noisei Sachar, someone who is a watchman for pay; V'Seicher, and a renter. Okay, Noisei Sachar, same idea as a Shemer Sachar. Okay, is there a Mishnah over here? Okay, so Shemer Chinam Nishma Al Koil. When it comes to a Shemer Chinam, let's say he's watching something but not for pay, so then it gets lost. For example, Gneva Aveda, he can make a shvua, and that'll be it. He'll be potter. He's not going to be mechuyev to return the object, or to reimburse the watchman, the person who gave it to him. So when it comes to all these things, and that's what we know already when it comes to a shemer chinam, it's a one out from various psukim, that a shemer chinam is potter from Gneva Aveda in the event if you make a shvua, you can be nishma. Okay, but shoyel, the opposite of a shemer chinam is a shoyel, someone who borrows something because he is getting hana and he's not paying for it. So therefore, because of Mishalom Asakoil, he has to pay in all circumstances. And Rashi helps us out and says that's Geneva Vaveda V'oinsin. Even by an oinus, if an oinus happens, the shoyel, the borrower, is mechuyev. But noisi sacher v'hasaycher. So we're actually linking these two, which is not a davar pasha that we hold like this. Nishboyin el shvur v'al shvuya v'al mesa. You can make a shvur to not have to pay. He's saying that the animal broke its leg, or was captured, or it died. As we know, a shemer sachar, he is chayev geneva aveda. As again, that's the contrast between a shemer chinam and shemer sachar. Whether or not a shemer chinam could just make a shvua because it would be potter, stolen or lost. The shemer sachar cannot make such a shvua because he's chayev geneva aveda. Says the Gemara, Man Tana Arba Shayman. Who's the Tana that says 4? So Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Muravu, Rav Meir he. So Rav Meir. So Amalei Rav Rav Nachman Miika Delaisle Arba Shayman. What do you mean? Who holds of 4? Everyone holds as 4. Is this more than 4? So Amalei Hachi Kamidalach. This is the question. This was being posed. Man Tana that Seicher's Kanaisis Sacher. Rav Meir hu. Who is the opinion that a shemer sachar has the same, and a renter have the same halachic status? What do you mean? Rameir said the opposite. The sign is Seicher Ketzad Mishalim. Rameir Omer Keshemer Chinam. Rameir says that a Seicher renter is like a shemer chinam. Rabbi Huda Omer Keshemer Sachar. So Rabba Boravu Ivcha Katani. He actually learned it the other way around. There was really Rameir that says that a renter is like a shomer sachar, not a shomer chinam. Yachar Abba Shleishin. I don't understand. Why are we saying this 4? If we're either shita, they're saying that the din of a renter is either like a shomer chinam, like a shomer sachar. So there's really only 3. So Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Dal Shermim. There's actually 4. There's only 3 laws that pertain to them. So there was this shepherd. The Havi Karoi Chevasa Gud in the Papa. And he was watching these animals at this location. Okay. Sharig Chadaminahu Vanaflamaya. So Rashi says, Hechlika. One of the animals slipped and fell into the water by this Nahar Papa. Also Kamei to Rabba. So the question is this person who's a shepherd, is he chayev for negligence for this animal that was injured or killed? So they sent the message in upatre, and they said the shepherd is potter. Somer my haviliyam evid. After all, what could a shepherd have done that we're going to even think that he should be chayev? As we continue to Sadi Gimel on the base, yes, this animal slipped, but after all, hanatar kidinatre inchi. He guarded these animals just like any other person would guard it. He did everything in the normal manner. And therefore, if something happened and accidentally this animal slipped, he's not going to be responsible. Says Rashi, Ve'ena Veda El Oinus. This falls in the category of something which is accidental. Here's Potter. So Amalei Abaya El Miyata. So if that's the case, what happens if Ol Lamasa Be'idna De'ayel Inshi Hachinami de Potter? So and let's say he went into the city. At the time when people go into the city, is also going to be Potter in? Yes. In other words, if there's he gets a lunch break and he goes away from these animals and he goes into the city, and then something happens during that time, is he responsible? No, he's not going to be responsible because he's acting the normal way any other person would act when it comes to watching animals. Gana porta be'inna de ganu inshi hakanam de Potter in. Let's say he took a nap, he fell asleep for a few minutes when this happened. still we'll say he's potter because this is the normal manner that people watch animals. They do take naps for a few seconds. So we have a question. Based on what we just said, Elohim Einsin, Shesharmer Sacher Potolan. These are examples in which a person who is watching for pay, that it's such an einus that he's not going to be responsible. For example, as the pasuk says in Iyub, V'tipol Shiva, that it fell, V'tikachem, and he took them. Yes, Hanarim Hiku Lefi, and the Narim were hit by sword. In other words, only this constitutes as an einus, which seems to be a total accident, something totally beyond your control, I should say, that you're being attacked by the sword. But these cases don't seem to be like an einus, certainly not what Eve is describing. So Emily Hassam over there, Bilchazne Masa. Over there, we're talking about the night watchman, says Rashi. Shaimer Ha'ir B'Laila. Shechol Samachan She'ir Alehem. Everyone's relying on those people. It's a life and death job. Lishmar Gufam Umamoinam. So Hanu Vadi Boyin the Tirasi Eterta. Those people need extra watching. So if they fall asleep while they're busy watching to make sure that no enemies are going to come and break into the city walls, yeah, that's a problem. So they have to always be awake. They can't go away for an hour and take a lunch break and there's no one watching. That's different. So when it comes to that, the only einus is if you have people that are literally going to attack you with the swords and it's beyond your control. However, in this case, it's not the same thing. We're not talking about watching life and death for people's lives. We're just talking about watching some fruit or watching some animals. How long does he have to guard? Ad kadei, until, again, here we have another pasuk, but this is referring to Yaakov. Hayisi b'yoyim achalani chayrev v'kerach b'layla. When he was speaking to his father-in-law about how careful he was when he was watching these animals, he said during the day, I was consumed by the heat and freezing cold ice at night. So apparently that's what you have to do as a shimer of animals. So I really know Hasam Nami B'chazoni Masa. Also over there he was referring to as a night's watchman, which it's hard to understand. Was that what Yaakov Avinu was doing? And this is what the Gemara asks now. I'm really to what? Yaakov Avinu Chazan Masa Havi. Whoa, he was like a security guard in the middle of the night. He was watching animals. What he was saying to Lavan was not that I wasn't obviously a night security guard, but that is how well I watched the animals, just like a night security guard. And therefore, it's an exception. However, in a normal person doesn't have to watch animals like Yaakov Avinu did. Esvei. So we're asked another question. Roya shahaya roya. So you have a shepherd who's tending to a bunch of animals. And he leaves the animals and he goes to a city. So he leaves the animals for a bit. Bazay v'taraf. And then all of a sudden you have a zave, a wolf comes and rips the animals apart. Va'ari v'danis, or a lion comes and again just kills these animals. So is the shepherd responsible for these attack of these wild animals? So ein oimdin, we don't, as it says inside, ein oimrim, we don't say ilu hayasham hayamatzel, that if he was there he could have saved the whole matter. Ella oimdin oisa, we evaluate. Im yochel hatzel chayim im potter. We don't just assume that he was able to save these animals, because if we're dealing with a ferocious lion, we're not going to assume that this guy is going to end up risking his very life and he's going to be attacked by a lion. However, if there's a way that he could have gotten that lion to not attack, so then in fact he would be chayiv, again, the fact that he wasn't there. My love, the al be'idna the ayli inchi. It must be, when did he leave? He left when most people left. And nonetheless, we can still see he could be chayiv. Lo, the al be'idna the loy al inchi. If he went during the normal time, then he would never be chayiv. However, we're talking about a situation where he went when he shouldn't have gone. And therefore, since that was not the normal way, that's not the way of kidinatri inchi, how people normally guard, so therefore he's going to be chayiv if he couldn't have done anything. He could have stopped the animals. Understand? Why do we say that he's ever potter? After all, he was Shia B'tchila. So the Shama Koil Ariv oil. He heard the loud noise of the lion, and then he came. In other words, that's why he left. He left because he was scared of the lion. He didn't leave because he was just going to some restaurant. He was going because he was scared of his life, and that's why he left. So 1 second. What do you mean we evaluate? Could he have done anything about it? What is this going to do? He ran away because he didn't want to get killed by the lion. So why should he ever be chayiv? So he could have gone first with shepherds and sticks. In other words, it is possible that he could have done something. So even though he heard the lion, maybe he could have climbed up on top of some tree to save his life, and he could have been banging with sticks or throwing sticks at the lion to get the lion out of the way. So there was something that he could have done, maybe, possibly, and he wouldn't have been harmed. So why are we talking about someone's getting paid? If even a Shemachinam should take some responsibility. Same thing. That a Shemachinam finds not getting paid, but he's still being a watchman, he shouldn't just desert the thing. So Shemachinam b'chinam, Shemachinam b'sachar. So a Shemachinam, he does it for free. A Shemachinam b'sachar, you need to pay him. You need to pay him. So look in Rashi. Rashi says, hopefully I'll find this. So first of all, the Rashi, T'chiloso havi b'pshia, gabi kol mazikin katanim v'kalim to yochel hatzel hari shahari hinicham. Pshia mihu T'chiloso b'pshia havi chayiv dehaki paskin dehilchasa b'mafkid. We actually say T'chiloso b'pshia, you should be chayiv. So it says, Hashem achinam yeshloi Yeshlo lekadim b'chinam. V'loy liskar nashim the shemesachar yeshlo level soichron. So when it comes to shemachinam, so he does it for free. But shemesachar, you need to pay these people to protect your animals. V'yad kama, how much money? Ad kedi demeim, up until the value of the animals. V'hechem atzin b'shemesachar shechayev b'oinsin. How do we find anywhere that when it comes to a shemesachar, he's chayev an oinus? The hadr shakel demehim and balbayis, that he can actually then get paid back for the balbayis for his services, and for all these people that were watching these protecting these animals. How does this cause any gain for the owner? In other words, if the owner has to pay all this money for all these people that come along to protect his animals up until the value of the animals, so what's the whole purpose of it? Let the lion just eat all the animals anyway. You're still absorbing a total loss. So what's the whole benefit for the Baal Bias? So nafgemina l'chshura dechevasa. First of all, it helps him as far as retaining new animals. So it's better that even though he would have to spend a lot of money for all these people, it's better that he should keep the same animals as opposed to then having to find new animals that he has to buy. Inami latirchia terta. Also, because this is really the other one, the extra tircha for finding new animals, and l'chshur dechevasa is, says Rashi, kaisher habehemos shemak behen kvar lumdos mebeisai. These are animals that already they would need to be retrained, because these old animals he'd rather keep because he's already taught them how to behave and how to remain in a herd and the like, as opposed to having to get new animals which have to retrain. So therefore, it would still be beneficial to hire other people to protect these animals from these wild beasts, even if it's all the way up to its value. Question 8. He leaves his animals, etc. So if you could have saved these animals from the Zav, then you're chayiv. After all, we said that he ran away basically. So he said, "O da'al be'inna da'al inshi, ukamandi arba dinatur kidinatur inshi potter." Maybe the reason why we would otherwise say his potter is because he went out during the normal time the other people went out. Oh, the shama koil ari, but oh, the havli oinus. He heard the loud noise of a lion and he ran away, and therefore it's an oinus because it's beyond his control to save these animals. He would have been killed. Okay. Rabbi Chisda barabba bar Rav Huna lusvil hadarabba diamri lahachi yav lachagra. So they don't agree to his statement. Says Rashi, lusvil hu hadarabba yermal el, who said before the machin nater kidanater inchi havi idach liftar. He doesn't believe that if you would have left these animals and you're acting in the same time as everyone else, that you would be potter. Why? Because naturally the tirata yaterta, because you really should have watched it even more than what you watched. So therefore, it's not an einus and ischayev for that animal that slipped. Bar ada siboyulaw. So this person, havika ma'aver chivasa agam denarash. So he was passing these animals by this bridge, this gesher of Narash, this location. And dochva chada lachaverta. So one pushed its friend, ushadisa b'may, and it fell into the water. Asking to Rav Papa chayve. Rav Papa actually says you're chayiv in this case that this accident wasn't an accident, happened. Or Malay, so might have a lemevin. Understand what could he have done to prevent this from happening? Or Malay, you should have transported one at a time. The fact that you had them all together, it was an accident waiting to happen. Therefore, you're responsible. Or Malay, yadat be bebar achtich dematzila maver chada chada. So first of all, look at Rashi over here. Chayve l'shalom hoyu b'hooker haganev. No, that's not the right Rashi. Bavarach tich kalemer beben amcha v'amoscha. The son of your nation and your maidservant, shabu shem hagan. Okay, so it says, is it possible that you're going to say that I'm able to take one at a time? Normally, kfar tzavchu kamoy de kamoch. So you could have called out one before the other. And there would have been no one that would have paid attention to him. Okay. Aivu has a new case, who was we're going to see as a shemer chinam, Avgid Kisna Beirunya. So he gave as a safekeeping some linen, special, very expensive linen. Ozul Shabu. So Shabu, which is the name of a thief, Rashi says who was a bandit who did armed robberies, came and Shamti Mine, and he basically grabbed this silk away. Now again, this is a ganav. Well, Soiv Hooker ganav. Eventually, it turned out we figured out it was this ganav, again by the name of Shabu, that stole it. Also coming to Rav Nachman Chayve. And they said that he has to pay. So why, says Rashi, why should this person have to pay? Since we found out who the Ganav was, it's not going to be a trouble with Teroach Achar Ganav to find this Ganav, and take it out from his hands. So therefore, basically, that's it. You're going to be chayiv, but then you'll just be able to get it from him. So Lema Pliga Rav Huna Baravin. The Shalach Rav Huna Baravin, Nignam of Einis, if something was stolen from you by accident, you figure out who the Ganav was, Im Shemachinam who Ratzin Nishba. It says that when it comes to a Shemachinam, which is the case of Aivu, he would be able to just make a shvua, and that's it. He would not have to pay. By a case of Geneva. Ratza Oisa Imodin, if he wants, he could take the thief to court. Im Shemasachahu, Oisi Modin, there's a Shemasacha, he could also take him to din. However, in that case, Veinu Nishma. He wouldn't be able to make a shvua because only Shemachinam can make a shvua to be put from Geneva, but not a Shemasacha. Amarava Hasam Gavri Depar Muskohavi Kamei. What is this? Says Rashi, Anshe Hashiltoin Hayusham. This case, there was a police officers that were there. The Ramakola, that if there would be a noise, Habi Asu Matsin Lay, and then they would be able to save it. In other words, in that case, since there were other people there and he could have called out to them, the fact that he didn't, he's actually Karv Lamezid, he's not an Einus. However, you're right, if it would be a case of an Einus, then Itaka should be potter. Let's see the next Mishnah. Zev Echad Einu Einus. So let's say you have one wolf that is coming after these animals. So you as a shepherd have the ability to ward off one wolf. And if you didn't, so therefore you are going to be Chayv. Shnei Ze'evim Einus. However, there's two wolves, so then that's already a lot. And that's pretty dangerous. So therefore, you're not responsible if it kills, let's say, the animal you're watching. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says it depends. B'shas mishlachas ze'evim. If you're during a time in which there is a plague, if you will, says Rashi, shechay ra mishlachas b'gezeres hamelach kayfetzasi al adam echad av zev echad oinus. So then, if we see that bunch of basically ze'evim run wild, even one is an oinus. Shnei kalavim ein oinus. If there's two dogs coming after your animals, it's not an oinus. A shepherd can ward off two dogs. Yedua habavli oimer. He says the Mishum Rameir meruach achas ein oinus. If it's only they're both coming from the same direction, so you could stop them from both coming. However, mishtei ruchais oinus. If one's coming from this direction, the other one's coming the other direction, so then there's nothing you can do about it, and therefore you're not responsible. Halistim harz oinus. If you're dealing with, Rashi says Garcina v'chad list kaimer. One thief is also already an oinus. Ha'ari hadayva never babardos v'nachash hari el oinus. You have all these wild animals: a lion, a bear, a leopard, and exactly what a bardos is, as the Gemara discusses elsewhere. There's a panther, certainly some dangerous wild animal. Nachash and the snake hari el oinus. So a shepherd has no obligation to have to try to ward off these things. Amosai, when do we say that it's an oinus? There's only bisman shabo meleim. That's only if they come and attack him. He's in his right place, and all these wild animals come after him. But if you decide to take your animals into harm's way, and you're taking them into the middle of the deepest part of the jungle with all these wild animals, so that's not an oinus anymore. Mesek Darka, if the animal dies in its normal fashion, so har is oinus. However, sigfa umesa eno oinus. Let's say, as Rashi says, ina, it was afflicted by some form of starvation. It says, oh hemida b'kayetz chama. It got in massive heat because you put it out in the sun. That is not an oinus, and you're chayav. Also, Rashi sukim. Let's say you brought this animal. This animal went to the top of a cliff, but it climbed itself. V'nafel harzei oinus. So you're not the one that brought it there; it just went up there. However, Elah l'Rashi sukim. If you brought the animal up, v'nafel mesa ein oinus. So then again, that's not an oinus. You'll be chayav. Okay, let's see a little bit. We're actually going to go all the way to the next Mishnah. Okay, says Gemara. V'sanyim, we learned that Zev Echad Oinus. How could our Mishnah say that Zev Echad Ein Oinus? We see a Zev Echad, even one wolf is dangerous. So Omram, that you would be potter. Omram Nachman Yitzchak Kahi B'Shas Mishlacha Zev Rabbi Yehuda. Again, this is a time where these Zevim are running wild. It's a plague time. It's a terrible time. Kadosh Baruch Hu gave this terrible Gezeres HaMelech, and therefore that's what we're referring to. However, in normal situation, a shepherd could ward off. Halistim hariz oinus. Amai loiki gavra lahadi gavra. So he says, why is it that if we're dealing with one guy, we said listim is referring to one, so then if there's one guy, you're one guy, fight him, right? So why is that an oinus? So amarav balistim azuyim. We're talking about an armed bandit. If we're talking about a guy with a gun, even if it's one person, that's not your fault. Therefore, it's not an oinus. It is an oinus. Iboilhu. Listim azoyin v'royim azoyin mahu. What if both of them are carrying guns, right? So it evens the playing field. So mi amrin and oki gavra hadi gavra. Do we say that they're even, and therefore because they're even, now it's not a noinus? O dilma hai masa nashe hai lo masa nashe. So mastabra hai masa nashe hai lo masa nashe. If you're going to be a thief, there's a likelihood that the bandit will fight to the death because he's already a criminal, and therefore he doesn't mind killing. However, you don't want to deal with this. Okay, fine, you're carrying a weapon, but it doesn't mean you want to use it, and therefore it's still considered to be an oinus. Amli Balu Rav Ashke Roya found a shepherd, V'oimrele Ganava Sarya, and he said that he said regarding a filthy thief, Beduchta Planya Yasfinon. We are located in such and such a place. He's speaking directly to the Ganav. You disgusting, horrible, filthy thief, says Rashi, Musrach. So he's already inciting him by calling him names and he's saying, we're over here. Sadi down on Alf. Kach v'kach gavri ika bahadon. I have this many guys by me. Kach v'kach kalvi ika bahadon. I have a bunch of dogs, a bunch of rabid dogs that happen to bite you. Kach v'kach zukasa pasikoman. So I have all these like bodyguards or slingshots. Yaz v'shakumine. And then he comes in and ends up taking. So what's the din? So Malay Hari Holichan Lamakam Kedudi Chayav Listim. That falls under the category of you going into the danger zone. Since he provoked this Ganav, he brought himself into that situation. So therefore the Shemer is Chayav. So it's interesting. So it's not enough that you're going into that situation, but if you escalate the problem with a criminal, so then you're going to incite him to want to engage in violence. Okay, we're going to stop there. But let's maybe see one more question. Question TA19. Shemachinam or Shemasachar, the nutter kidanatri inchi. They're watching in the normal way. Kagain al beidna the aisle inchi. Let's say they left when normal people leave. Him chayim. So a shemachinam is going to be potter. A shemasachar is a machlokas in the Gemara. Rabba im Rav Chista. V'Rabba bar Rav Huna. V'chazni masa, and if you're involved in watching as a guardsman, l'kol yama chayav, and in that case, everyone holds you are chayav. Adkan.